Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. It was supposed to be a harmless favor. Jeremy, my lifelong buddy, had been on the unlucky end of love too many times. Come on, Alex, just help me scroll through these profiles. You know women better than I do, man, he pleaded over the phone. Reluctantly, I agreed. We sat down with my laptop open between us, a bottle of beer each, flicking through endless profiles on a popular dating app. No. Definitely not, Jeremy muttered, unimpressed by the parade of potential matches. I chuckled, nudging him whenever a particularly quirky profile appeared, trying to keep the mood light. Suddenly, my laughter died in my throat as a familiar face flashed on the screen, my own. Confusion morphed into horror as I read the profile details. Alex, 35, adventurous, looking for someone to start anew with. The bio was laced with intimate details only my ex-wife, Clara, could know. What the? Jeremy looked at me, eyebrows raised. That's me, I said, pointing at the screen. I didn't set this up. Realization dawned slowly. Clara and I had ended our marriage 6 months ago, the wounds of our bitter separation still fresh. Could she really stoop this low? Anger simmered within me as the pieces fell together. This had to be Clara's doing, perhaps a twisted bid to claim adultery in our finalized divorce to seize more assets, like the beachfront condo she always coveted. Why would she do this? Jeremy asked, his voice a mix of concern and confusion. To destroy me, I muttered, my mind racing. I knew Clara to be calculated, but setting up a fake dating profile was audacious even for her. Determined to unearth the full extent of her deceit, I decided to investigate further. I created a fake profile, crafting a persona she couldn't resist, charming, successful, and enigmatic. I swiped right on my profile, a bait I hoped she would take. Days passed with no response, and my anxiety grew. Had she sensed a trap? But then, a notification pinged late one evening. It was a match. Clara had taken the bait. Her profile was equally fabricated, an alter ego that exuded charm and success. We exchanged messages, her words dripping with intrigue and seduction, not knowing she was actually conversing with her ex-husband. Each message was a calculated push to draw out her true intentions. One night, as our fictitious romance escalated, she suggested a meeting. Let's not wait any longer, her message read. I feel like I've known you forever. The meeting was set at a cozy cafe downtown, a public place, her choice. I arrived early, anxiety and anticipation battling within me. As she walked in, confident and smiling at her phone, I approached her from behind. Clara, I called out. She turned, her smile fading into shock, then morphing into a hardened glare as she recognized me. Alex? What are you? Why did you do it, Clara? I interrupted, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Why create a fake profile of me? Her eyes darted around, seeking an escape. But there was none. You ruined my life, Alex. I just wanted you to feel a fraction of the pain you caused me. You've gone too far, I said, the cafe's buzz drowning into a background hum. This ends now. I walked out, leaving her amidst the murmuring crowd, her face a mask of defeat. But as the cafe door closed behind me, I felt no triumph, only the heavy weight of our mutual destruction. Outside, the chilly air bit into my skin, a reminder of the Cold War Clara and I had waged. But it was far from over. I had seen her venom, and now, it was my turn to strike back. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready to fight back in ways she never anticipated. This was just the beginning. The confrontation at the cafe left an icy trail in my veins. Clara's audacity had reached new heights, and now, it was clear, this was war, and I was not just a victim but a contender. The next morning dawned with the weight of my resolve. Sitting in the solitude of my home office, I mapped out my strategy. I couldn't let Clara roam free with her deceit. It was time to expose her, not just for my sake, but as a warning to anyone else she might try to ensnare. I contacted a private investigator, someone recommended for situations as delicate as mine. I need comprehensive information on my ex-wife's activities since our split, I explained over the phone. The PI, a seasoned pro named Mark, assured me he'd get everything I needed. Days morphed into nights as Mark delved into Clara's life. He unearthed more than I bargained for. Apart from the fake dating profile, Clara had been fabricating emails and messages, which painted me as an unfaithful husband. She planned to use these in a legal crusade to reopen our divorce settlement. Armed with this information, I arranged a meeting with my lawyer. She's constructed an entire campaign to defame me and extort money, I said, laying out the documents Mark had provided. We have enough to counterattack, my lawyer, Helen, assured me, her eyes scanning the documents. Let's go on the offensive. We can file a defamation lawsuit and even press charges for fraud. Energized by Helen's confidence, I felt the tide turning. I wasn't going to just defend, I was going to attack. I was ready to bring the battle to Clara's doorstep. However, Clara wasn't one to sit idly by. The following week, as I walked out of my office building, a man approached me. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and his cold stare sent a shiver down my spine. "Mr. Thompson?" he inquired, blocking my path. "Yes," I responded cautiously. "Consider this a friendly warning," he said, his tone anything but friendly. "Drop your investigations and lawsuits against Clara. You have no idea what she's capable of." The threat was palpable, hanging in the air like a foul stench. But fear wasn't a luxury I could afford. "Tell Clara that I'm just getting started," I retorted, my voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. As the man walked away, I knew this was no longer just about clearing my name. It was about survival. Clara had escalated the conflict beyond deceit into dangerous territories. That night, I bolstered my home security, installing new cameras and updating all my digital passwords. I was a fortress preparing for siege. 2 days later, the moment of truth arrived. We were in court, Clara on one side, me on the other, our lawyers like generals on a battlefield. As Helen presented the evidence of Clara's fabrications, Clara's lawyer tried to interject, but the proof was irrefutable. Clara's face, once composed, now betrayed cracks of desperation. She knew her plan was unraveling. The judge was stern. "I will not tolerate manipulation of this court. Mrs. Thompson, you will face charges for your actions. This is a serious offense." Outside the courtroom, I confronted Clara one more time. "Why go through all this, Clara? Was it just for money?" She looked away, her eyes empty. "You wouldn't understand, Alex. It was never just about the money." As I walked away, her words echoed in my mind. I had won this battle, but the war was far from over. Clara was unpredictable, and I had to be ready for her next move. The game of chess continued, and I was prepared for anything she might throw my way. The courthouse steps felt colder as I descended them, the weight of the legal victory doing little to warm the chill of the unfolding drama. Clara's final look, a mix of defiance and desperation, was etched into my mind. It was clear that the courtroom battle was just an opening act to what could become a prolonged war. That evening, I met with Mark, the private investigator, at a quiet bar downtown to discuss the next steps. The dim lighting and the soft hum of conversations provided a semblance of normalcy amidst my turbulent thoughts. "Good work in court today," Mark said as he slid into the booth opposite me. I nodded, swirling the ice in my scotch. "It's not over, though," she warned me. "There's more to come." Mark leaned forward, his expression serious. I've been doing some digging, Alex. Clara's been meeting with some shady characters. Seems like she's not just playing legal games. Who are they? I asked, feeling the tension rise. Some are known con artists, others have records for blackmail and intimidation. I can't connect all the dots yet, but it's clear she's assembling a team. A cold dread settled over me. What's her plan? I'm not sure yet, but it's definitely not just about dragging you through the mud legally, Mark replied, his eyes scanning the room cautiously. We agreed that he would keep tailing Clara and her associates while I would strengthen my defenses. The next few days were a blur of security consultations and legal meetings. Despite the preparations, the feeling of being watched grew stronger. One afternoon, as I left my office, I noticed a car that seemed too familiar. It had been in the background too often in the past week. Not taking any chances, I decided to confront the issue head-on. I abruptly turned and walked straight towards the car. As I approached, the driver, caught off guard, sped off. I managed to snap a quick photo of the license plate with my phone. Back in my office, I sent the photo to Mark. Got a tail. Can you check this out? I texted. Within hours, Mark replied, that car is registered to a private security firm. Looks like Clara hired muscle. The revelation was alarming but not surprising. If Clara was ramping up her offensive, I had to be one step ahead. I needed more than just defensive measures, I needed leverage. Let's find something on her that she can't afford to have exposed, I told Mark during our next strategy session. He nodded, his eyes sharp. I'm on it. The opportunity came sooner than expected. Mark called me late one night. Alex, you need to see this, he said, urgency in his voice. I met him at his office, where he showed me surveillance photos of Clara handing over an envelope to a well-known local politician in a secluded parking garage. This looks like a payoff. If we can prove it, her credibility is finished. With the evidence in hand, I felt the tide turning. We prepared to expose Clara's dealings, ensuring the information would reach the right hands at the right time. The next morning, news broke of a corruption scandal involving the politician Clara had met. The media frenzy was immediate and intense. Clara's name surfaced in hours, linked to the scandal through leaked documents that traced back to her. As the scandal unfolded, I watched from the sidelines, the pieces of my carefully laid plan falling into place. Clara was now fighting battles on multiple fronts, her resources and allies dwindling. Sitting across from her in a cafe, days later, the air between us was thick with unspoken truths. You could have walked away, Clara, I said quietly, the clatter of coffee cups around us a distant noise. She met my gaze, her face worn. I guess I underestimated you, Alex. This ends now, I said firmly. Drop everything, and I'll call off the hounds. Clara nodded, defeat written in her slumped shoulders. It's over, she agreed. As I walked away, the weight of our shared past and turbulent present lingered. Victory tasted bittersweet, the cost etched deep in memories and lost time. But at least now, the shadows retreated, leaving behind a clearer, albeit scarred path forward. As the dust settled from Clara's public disgrace, the city's chill seemed harsher, mirroring the cold finality of our severed ties. Despite the victory, satisfaction eluded me. The ruin Clara had attempted to orchestrate against me demanded a conclusive end, a closure that would prevent any resurgence of conflict. My phone buzzed late one evening as I mulled over my next move in my dimly lit living room. It was Mark. Alex, you better see this, his voice was tense, edged with urgency. I met him at his office, where he handed me a thick envelope. Found this during a sweep of Clara's last known contacts, he said. Inside were detailed plans, Clara's contingency to ruin me financially and socially, deeper and more expansive than I had imagined. My eyes narrowed as I absorbed the extent of her betrayal. It's not just about money or revenge, Mark pointed out, she's tied up with some serious players. Looks like she planned to keep coming at you in waves. The revelation steeled my resolve. This wasn't just about retribution, it was about survival. Clara's network had to be dismantled, utterly and completely. I pored over the documents, each page a blueprint of betrayal. One name, however, stood out, a high-profile fixer known for dirty dealings, linked with Clara's schemes. If I could turn him, the dominoes would fall, taking Clara's remnants with them. Setting the plan into motion, I approached the fixer under the guise of seeking his services. We met in a nondescript warehouse, the air thick with the scent of oil and metal. "You come highly recommended," I said, my tone neutral. He eyed me warily. "I know who you are, Alex Thompson. What makes you think I'd help you?" With a slight smirk, I tossed a folder onto the table between us, evidence of his illegal activities, enough to put him away for a long time. "Because you don't have a choice." The fixer's eyes darkened, but the threat held its ground. After a tense moment, he nodded. "What do you want?" "Information and assistance." "You're going to help me dismantle Clara's entire network," I declared, my voice firm, leaving no room for negotiation. Over the next few weeks, we worked in the shadows, tracing the tendrils of Clara's influence and cutting them off, one by one. Assets frozen, accounts flagged, and associates turned. The fixer, bound by his own survival, proved invaluable. The endgame approached. I confronted Clara one last time, in the ruins of an old factory she once owned. The setting sun cast long shadows over the broken glass and graffiti walls, mirroring the destruction of her life. "Alex, why can't you just let it go?" Clara's voice was hoarse, her figure shadowed against the dimming light. "You tried to destroy me, Clara. Did you really think there'd be no comeback?" I stepped closer, my voice cold as steel. "I did what I had to, Alex. It was never personal," she tried to justify, her eyes not meeting mine. "But it was, Clara. It was personal the moment you targeted me," I retorted sharply, the final pieces of my plan locking into place behind the scenes. As we spoke, police sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. Clara's eyes widened as realization dawned. "You set me up," she whispered, betrayal coloring her tone. "Just returning the favor," I said flatly as law enforcement flooded into the area, securing the perimeter. Clara was taken into custody, her defeat absolute. As she passed by me, handcuffed and defeated, our eyes met one last time, a mixture of remorse and resignation passing between us. I turned away, the factory's desolate silence swallowing the echo of our parting. Revenge had been exacted, ruthlessly and thoroughly, but it left a hollow victory. As I walked away from the wreckage of Clara's ambitions, I knew this chapter of my life was closed, sealed by the darkness of betrayal and the harsh light of retribution. There was no going back, only forward, alone, but unencumbered by the shadows of the past.